What is the most important archaeological discovery of all time? That's not really up for debate. It's undoubtedly the Dead Sea Scrolls. This cache of ancient Jewish texts discovered between 1947 and 1956 in the West Bank, near the city of Jericho, contains some of the oldest surviving pieces of biblical scripture. And since their discovery, these fragile fragments have revealed all kinds of fascinating information about the historical context of the Bible, early Judaism, and life in ancient Palestine. But what exactly did these scrolls tell us about the Bible? And are there any additional secrets hidden within them? Let's find out. The story of the Dead Sea Scrolls started in 1947, when a young Bedouin shepherd named Muhammad, who was trying to wrangle his flock of goats, stumbled upon a strange black pot protruding from the side of a cave. Curious, he tossed a stone into the opening, which made a loud enough noise to alert his friends. Together, the boys broke open the seal, opened the jar, and found inside a collection of ancient leather and papyrus scrolls. Initially, they had no idea what they had discovered, but once they realized they were holding actual pieces of history in their hands, they sold them to an antiquities dealer in Bethlehem. From there, the scrolls made their way to an official at the British Israel Museum in Jerusalem named John Allegro, who quickly realized that the contents of the jars were unlike anything he had ever seen before. Soon the world would learn that these were not just any old pieces of history, but rather some of the oldest surviving manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible. In total, over 900 manuscripts were found across 11 caves in the area surrounding Qumran National Park. These texts date back to between the 2nd century BC and the 1st century CE, making them around 2,000 years old. To put this into perspective, that makes the Dead Sea Scrolls roughly as old as ancient Rome itself. Interestingly, though the site where the scrolls were found is actually located outside the borders of modern-day Israel, and is instead situated in the West Bank, also known as the Palestinian territories. At first, it was believed that the majority of the manuscripts discovered were from a single, perhaps even unique community of people. However, further research suggests that the various writings found at Qumran actually represent a collection of different communities, possibly belonging to several different groups living in and around the Judean desert. In fact, scholars believe that these communities might have been the very same Essene sect who wrote about a particular apocalyptic tradition found in the Book of Enoch. But what about the condition of the scrolls themselves? Why are they called the Dead Sea Scrolls? Well, the reason for this name lies in the conditions under which they were found. The scrolls were kept in clay jars and then stored inside of caves. After being abandoned, they remained untouched for nearly 2 millennia, which may be the reason why they survived at all. Typically, writing in those days was done on papyrus or parchment, both of which decomposed much faster than the animal skins used in the creation of the scrolls. Furthermore, because these caves were dry and the scrolls were sealed in waterproof jars, they were protected from water damage. As a result of these fortunate circumstances, the Dead Sea Scrolls are in remarkably good condition for being 2,000 years old. So how do we know that these manuscripts are actually as old as we think? Well, one of the greatest things about them is that many contain multiple different writings, and thus scholars have been able to date them using what is known as paleography, which is simply the study of ancient writing and scripts. For example, one of the most intact of the Dead Sea Scrolls is known as the Great Isaiah Scroll, and dates back to around the year 125 BCE. The language, script and style of writing is extremely similar to other pieces of writing from that time period, confirming its age. Additionally, the scroll has also been dated using radiocarbon dating, which confirmed that it was likely created during the Hasmonean period in ancient Judea. Another interesting aspect of the scrolls is that they were created only about 100 years before the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, which was a significant event mentioned in all 4 Gospels as well as the Book of Acts. Given this, many people have wondered whether or not the so-called War of the Sons of Light, described in the Book of Enoch, aligns with the events surrounding the destruction of the temple. There is certainly some overlap in terms of timing, but the author of Enoch refers to a messianic figure named Armeniel, who rules over the forces of light. As such, it seems unlikely that the two are related. While the majority of the Dead Sea Scrolls consist of biblical manuscripts, some of them are not actually considered canonical. Take, for instance, the Community Rule, which is a set of guidelines detailing laws and expectations for members of the various communities living in and around Qumran. According to this document, members were expected to live together in a kind of commune, and all property was held in common. Interestingly, this may help to explain why there was no record of any Roman coins being found alongside the scrolls. Also, according to this rule, men could only join the group after undergoing a purification ritual and swearing a vow of secrecy. Women could join too, but they would have to remain unmarried. It's possible that the group's strict requirements for membership helped to preserve the scrolls for so long, as outsiders were forbidden from entering the caves where they were kept. As for what these various communities believed in, there are some clues that can be found in another document called the War of the Sons of Light. This text details a battle between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. Scholars believe that the war being described here is likely an allegory for the ongoing battle between good and evil. However, it may also describe the conflict between the Jewish people and their oppressors, such as the Seleucids, who attempted to enforce Hellenism on the Jews during the period known as the Hasmonean Revolt. Some historians have even suggested that the group living at Qumran were the very people referred to as the Therapeuti by the Greek philosopher Philo of Alexandria. Philo described them as a group of pious individuals who lived in the wilderness and practiced a form of monastic asceticism. He claimed that they never married and that they engaged in communal worship and study of the scriptures. If this is true, then the Essenes were likely a Jewish sect that formed during a time when the nation of Judea was occupied by foreign powers. Because of this, they retreated to the desert where they could live separately from society. Some people even claim that the members of these communities were the very same people who hid the Ark of the Covenant before the destruction of Solomon's temple. But, is there any evidence to support this idea? There is no direct evidence to suggest that the Ark of the Covenant was hidden in the caves of Qumran. However, the discovery of an inscription known as the Ketef Hinnom Geniza might lend some indirect evidence to this idea. The Ketef Hinnom Geniza consists of two small clay fragments discovered in 1979. These fragments contain part of a blessing from the Book of Deuteronomy, but they were inscribed in ink onto a piece of thin metal. Unlike most biblical manuscripts, which were written on papyrus or leather, these fragments were created using a process more akin to what would later become the Gutenberg printing press. Scholars believe that this new technology may have been used in order to hide the artifacts, either the Ark of the Covenant or the two lost tablets containing the 10 Commandments, perhaps even both. According to a man named Simha Jacobovici, who wrote a book called The Lost Ark, these artifacts were taken by the prophet Jeremiah and buried in the desert of Judah in order to protect them from destruction. Jeremiah 38:4 tells us that Jeremiah was told to hide a large vessel in the clay in the midst of the 2 fish in the net and cast it down into the 3rd pit that was full of slime. In addition to this, Jeremiah 39:3 says that Jeremiah fled and came into the land of Moab and left the king's court and the hand of the king the bad and good and the scribe and the governors. When the scroll was found, it was covered in clay, which is exactly what the passage instructs. Furthermore, it was discovered alongside fish bones, which would have been abundant in the area during the time it was written. Finally, there were traces of lead and copper found on the artifact, which may refer to the word vessels in the passage. Taking all of this into consideration, there is a chance that the 2 tablets containing the 10 Commandments might be hiding somewhere in the deserts of modern-day Jordan. However, it should be noted that there is currently no direct evidence to support this theory. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this one. And be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. You can also leave a comment below with your thoughts, questions or suggestions for future videos. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.